Alrighty. Let's go ahead and cover this. Apparently, my state's getting sued. And, well, I'm not surprised. Why is the hoodie breaking? The hoodie is literally breaking at every single thing I do. That's just beautiful. Anyway, apparently, my state is getting sued by the Department of Justice. And, we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, as always, let's go ahead and get into the fan art section. So, from 666, the anime cat 666. If I spelled degenerate wrongs, don't tell me. Let me live in blissful ignorance. We have a fucking degenerates, Suris. Every single time that I am told to say ara ara on chat, I have to look at the chat and let you all know exactly how monstrous each and every one of you is. Do remember this. As right now, MC Poto, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an you weird, strange little person, you. Anyway, the next piece is Lionel. Their niece asked them to draw a cat girl for them, and you had to do this quick. Apparently, it's rough. Didn't get to the shading. But honestly, the fact that this is drawn in chalk at all, this is fucking cute. I'm not even gonna lie. That's fucking neat. And it's even got a Nerf gun. It's specifically, holy shit, that is specifically the Sylveon gun, which of course we can show on screen right now. I mean, obviously there's this beam, but it's right up there. It's even the Sylveon gun, which is right up there in that corner. Top left corner. Yeah, Nerf wall. So, as always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. It is greatly appreciated. If you want to submit fan art to have it shown on the show, best way to do so is by dropping it into the Discord fan art section, and that will guarantee that eventually it will be shown on an episode. Alright, now that we've gotten that bit out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the United States Department of Justice. Scroll in on this a little bit so everybody can read as well. So, says here that the... Oh, wow, I just realized that I can't see the sides here very easily. Let's maybe fix that real quick. Let's maybe fix some of this real quick. Display capture. There we go. Now it's easier to see that side. It's no longer cut off. And we can zoom in just a little bit. Just a little bit. There we go. The U.S. Department announced today that it filed a lawsuit against the state of Georgia, the Georgia Secretary of State, and the Georgia State Election Board over recent voting procedures adopted by Georgia Senate Bill 202, which was signed into law March 2021. Didn't we talk about some of this on earlier episodes? I don't remember if we talked about this bill in specific, but I know we've talked about Georgia's problematic history with voting rights. So, this bill was signed into law March 2021. The United States complaint challenges provisions of Senate Bill 202 under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The right of all eligible citizens to vote is the central pillar of our democracy, the right from which all our rights ultimately flow, said Attorney General Merrick B. Garland. Wait, you mean it's not from God? You mean Michael Knowles lied to me? Our rights here flow from our right for our voices to be heard in a democratic fashion through the democratic process? Not because God said so and then he snapped them into existence? Oh, wow, Attorney General Merrick B. Garland, I am going to have to tell Michael Knowles about this. Oh, boy, that's going to be real awkward. That's going to be a real strange conversation. Loki of House Ben, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an oh well. Wrong face. Oh well. Okay. Striker, thank you for resubscribing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The Jesus fuck, why does he have a Nerf wall? Because I like it. Rights are stored in the balls. Yes, our human rights are stored in the balls. Okay. So, this lawsuit is the first step of many we are taking to ensure that all eligible voters can cast a vote, that all lawful votes are counted, and that every voter has access to accurate information. The right to vote is one of the most central rights in our democracy, and protecting the right to vote for all Americans is at the core of the Civil Rights Division's mission, said Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark for the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. The DOJ will use all the tools it has available to ensure that eligible citizens can register, cast a ballot, and have that ballot counted free from racial discrimination. Laws adopted with a racially motivated purpose, like Georgia's Senate Bill 202, simply have no place in our democracy today. So before we continue forward, maybe we should take a quick look at Georgia Bill 202. Probably very important to do. Now, despite the fact that this bill is 98 pages long, which is small for one of these kind of bills, I don't remember the specifics on what this bill does. So we're going to look at a quick TLDR. But you can look it up yourself if you want. We're going to look at a TLDR real quick. Here we go. So what does it do? Is a new state of voting laws after Governor Brian Kemp signed in SB 202, a 98-page omnibus bill on Thursday. The Election Integrity Act. Oh my god, there's so many of these that are worded this way now because of the fucking... We need to make sure that our elections are good and fair because we don't want another Joe Biden winning when we know that Donald Trump was the actual and true real supreme leader of America. We know the people voted for him. And yeah, it's true. Some people voted for him, but more people voted for Biden. Boy, doesn't that blow dick. Side note, I'm not going to get on a tangent real quick, but I bitched about this on Twitter. I'm going to bitch about it here. I totally went to Hobbytown. I don't know if you guys have one of those in your town, but I went there to, like, just see if there was a Magic the Gathering group there, and there was a single guy there sitting at the Magic the Gathering tables, just talking to the store owner about how Donald Trump definitely won the election, and talking about how the He-Man remake was horrible because he loved it, but he didn't like that there was a bait and switch and there was a female main character. And I didn't want to walk into a Geeks and Gamers episode in an actual card shop where I wanted to go play card games. So I just fucking left. I just left. But nice emergency food emote, Angelo Arcanis. Anyways, that is a fun thing that happened. Back to the bill. Just throwing out there's implications to this, like literally just walking around in real life. I'm seeing the same shit that I'm hearing online. And dear God, I want, even these people that are outside, I want to touch grass. I really want them to. Anywho. The Election Integrity Act was passed out of legislature on a party line vote, and it makes a number of controversial changes to how elections are run in the state, but also many adjustments welcomed by local elections officials, who were overwhelmed by record turnout and unprecedented shift towards mail-in voting because of the COVID pandemic. Because it's such a massive piece of legislation, proponents and opponents of the bill are focusing on different sections of the law, but there are many that voters might have missed. So, changes to absentee voting. Mail-in absentee voting will look the most different for voters, especially after 1.3 million people used that method in November's general election. Voters over 65 with a disability and the military who live overseas will still be able to apply once for a ballot and automatically receive one the rest of an election cycle. But the earliest voters can request a mail-in ballot will be 11 weeks before an election instead of 180 days, less than half as much time. Why? Why is that? Why? What? Why? The final deadline to complete an application is moved earlier, too. Instead of returning an application by the Friday before the election day, SB 202 now backs it up to 2 Fridays before. Republican sponsors of the bill and local elections officials say this will cut down on the number of ballots rejected for coming in late because of the tight turnaround. Counties will also begin mailing out absentee ballots about 3 weeks later than before, starting 4 weeks before the election. Requesting and returning a ballot will also require new ID rules, either your driver's license, number, state ID, or if you don't have those, a copy of acceptable voter ID. The law also allows for applications to be returned online after the Secretary of State's office launched an online request portal using your driver's license number or state ID number ahead of November's general election. Poll workers will use this information plus your name, date of birth, and address to verify your identity, and you will sign an oath swearing that everything is correct. This is a change from recent procedure that would check your signature on the application with those on file. Okay, so this part here I actually like because the signature check was a problem. The signature check was an issue that if you had a hyphenated name or any name that was severely complicated, which usually meant a not white name like John, you were actually disproportionately affected by this. So this is actually one good change. In theory, I could be wrong. There could be a problem with this as well. But getting rid of the signature match thing is a good idea. State and local governments are no longer allowed to send unsolicited applications, and third-party groups that send applications have new rules to follow, too. Their applications must be clearly marked as not an official government publication, and that this is not a ballot, and it must clearly state which group is sending the blank request. Plus, third-party groups are only allowed to send applications to voters who have not already requested or voted an absentee ballot. The groups potentially face a penalty for each duplicate sent, okay? So, let's see here. Is there anything here? The State Election Board authorized drop boxes using the emergency rule process because of the coronavirus pandemic, and even that process is now being tweaked. The board must provide more notice of proposed emergency rules and has much more limited scope to which it can enact those rules. Okay, so let's see if there's anything here that would potentially cause the DOJ to do their thing. Because aside from the removal of the signature match thing, that seemed to be a smorgasbord. So actually, we're going to see if the DOJ thing gives a little more context first. It said, one of the fundamental rights in our democracy is the right to vote. That should be protected by every citizen for our district, regardless of race, said acting U.S. Attorney Kurt R. Eckstein for the Northern District of Georgia. The U.S. State's Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia is committed to protecting the rights of all Americans to vote. The U.S.'s complaint contends that several provisions of Senate Bill 202 were adopted with the purpose of denying or abridging the right to vote on account of race. The Justice Department's lawsuit alleges that a cumulative and discriminatory effect of these laws, particularly on black voters, was known to lawmakers, and that lawmakers adopted the law despite this. Okay. I'm curious as to which ones. I know that the hyphenated name one, the signature match, disproportionately affects certain voters. I don't know what other ones specifically do, but we need to look further in anyway. Let's continue reading here. The U.S. complaint challenges several provisions of Senate Bill 202, including a provision banning government entities from distributing unsolicited absentee ballot applications. The imposition of costly and onerous fines on civic organizations, churches, and advocacy groups that distribute follow-up absentee ballot applications. The shortening of the deadline to request absentee ballots to 11 days before Election Day. Yeah, that one I have a problem with. The requirement that voters who do not have identification issued by the Georgia Department of Driver Services photocopy another form of identification in order to request an absentee ballot without allowing for the use of the last 4 digits of a social security number for such applications. Significant limitations on counties' use of absentee ballot voting. Oh, I see how that... Okay, I see what the issue is. The fact that instead of using information that is in a database, giving that information to somebody, and then when found that that information is unique to you, doing your vote like you would for most other ways of identification, and forcing the identification to be via the Georgia Department of Driver Services or forcing voter ID. Especially in underprivileged areas, there are several people who do not have access to a driver's license or easy access to even getting one. They also don't have other forms of photo ID for the same reasons. This also disproportionately affects people who are disabled. So actually, that one I can understand. you end up having fewer people who are disabled and fewer people who are financially disenfranchised, which typically involves people of color in the United States. You have fewer of them voting when you have these extra restrictions on identification. When simply juxtaposing the information they give you in a database and making sure that there is not a double vote on any one person suffices. It's literally plenty to guarantee that a vote is legitimate. You can't exactly fudge the information when the information is going to be checked in a database of all people who live in a particular district. Let's see here. The complaint asked the court to prohibit Georgia from enforcing these particular requirements. It has also a prohibition on efforts by churches and civic groups to provide food and water. Yeah, this one's an issue. This one I remember being a fucking issue as well. That we didn't read in the other thing. So in Bill 202, there's a prohibition on churches and civic groups from providing food or water to people waiting in long lines to vote, and the prohibition on counting out-of-precinct provisional ballots cast before 5 p.m. on Election Day. So you're shortening the amount of time that certain people can even get their votes in, and you are making it more difficult to get your vote in, period. When I go vote, I get up in the morning and I just go, right? I go within minutes of the poll locations opening, and I still end up sitting in a line usually about 30 minutes to an hour. Prohibiting any area that happens to hold these votes, prohibiting them from being able to give food and water to the people waiting in line is a severe discouragement to people waiting in line, period. Again, some people cannot just bring food with them. If you are one of these people who's already going to be disenfranchised due to having less money, the likelihood of you picking up something on the way or having the ability to bring something with you is already going to be lower. The argument that I've heard made against this is that what if a Republican or a Democrat, but what if a Republican comes and brings food and water as a way of advertising their particular political candidate and says, hey, remember to vote for, I don't know, George Zummer Whiteman, whoever the fuck it is. And I can understand that concern, but I'll also say this. If somebody is going to the polls, they've already made up their mind about who they're voting for, very likely. And if they go to the polls and they're able to have their mind changed by, I don't know, a slice of bread being handed to them randomly in the line, that's already a problem that needs to be addressed elsewhere. Preventing them from getting the food and water at all? Probably not the way to handle that. Deputy Attorney General Lisa O. Monaco also issued a memo to the United States attorneys and FBI field offices today on investigating and prosecuting threats to election officials. To assist with the important effort, the department will also establish an intra-departmental task force to address the rising threats. I can see how extremists would definitely be a little more bold attacking politicians after January 6th went oh so well. Today's announcement follows Attorney General Garland's recent commitment to expand the Justice Department's efforts to safeguard voting rights. More information about the Voting Rights Act and other federal voting laws is available on the DOJ's website at justice.gov/crt/about/vot. Complaints about discriminatory voting practices may be reported to the voting section of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. For a list of department's actions to protect voting rights, we can click here. So we'll look at that real quick. We got a whole statement here. In the United States versus Georgia Department of in the United States versus Georgia, the DOJ contends that several provisions of the Georgia Senate bill were adopted with the purpose of denying or abridging the rights to vote on account of race. Is this just going to be a summation of what we already read? A provision banning government entities from distributing unsolicited absentee ballots. We already looked at that. The imposition of costly and onerous fines on civic organizations or churches and advocacy groups that distribute follow-up absentee ballot applications. That feels like a problem, but I don't know why it is, and I don't want to complain about this not knowing why it's an issue. It is. I would say look this one up for yourself. See how this disproportionately affects people. I cannot get that information here right now. The shortening of the deadline to request absentee ballots to 11 days before Election Day, that one I agree with is a problem. The requirement that voters who do not have identification issued by... Okay, that's the ID one. We already went over that one. I don't like this one either. Significant limitations on counties' use of absentee ballot drop boxes. This, I can see, is a bit of a problem. Absentee ballots are an important thing, especially for people who work, say, 2 or 3 jobs. You can't tell somebody who barely makes enough money to survive, oh, just take the day off from work and go vote, when they're like, no, you don't understand. I need to fucking work today still. Even the extra time they take, taking 30 minutes off of work to go vote, when it's midday, that's not 30 minutes. That's sometimes 3 hours. Sometimes that's 5 hours, depending on where you are, how densely populated it is. Sometimes people can't afford to take that time. Absentee ballot drop boxes are very important for these reasons. The prohibition on efforts by churches and civic groups to provide food and water to persons waiting in line to vote. Yep, that's an issue. The prohibition on counting out of precinct provisional ballots cast before 5 p.m. on Election Day. Okay. So they want to increase resources for the DOJ for this. Review new and current voting laws. They want to scrutinize all new laws to seek and curb. Any laws that curb voter access, they want to diminish. And we have a little more information here as well. The DOJ also wants to partner with federal agencies to combat election disinformation that intentionally tries to suppress the vote. So, all in all, there we go. Trying to get that turned off. All in all, this is a complicated mess. And I personally do not have all the information required to give you guys the most accurate presentation here. Usually when I go into something, I know a lot of the information prior, and even with this, I know a lot of the information prior as well. I know how the voter ID laws affect people. I know the issues of the absentee ballots, but there's other stuff here that I do not yet understand. So, again, I highly encourage you guys to research how these things do disproportionately affect people to determine what your opinion is on this. What I find interesting is that my entire state, where I've been complaining about how Georgia fucks with its voter base, I find it funny as hell that the Department of Justice is just straight up suing the state. Because at the end of the day, my state has an issue with voters' rights. And we have for a while. Thanks, Brian Kemp. Thank you so much. You, not allowed to say that on live air. Not allowed to say that word. You fill in the blank on that one. Anywho, with all that said, everyone, if you found any of this informative, if you enjoyed this particular presentation, let me know in the comments section below. And as always, everyone, if you want to support the channel, best way to do so is located in the description box. You can do so via Patreon. You can do so via one-time donations over Coffee or PayPal. Or if you want to support the channel with something physical, then there is an Amazon list there you can yeet things to me from as well. I've also got a P.O. box if that's your thing. I'm scared of what gets sent to me at that P.O. box. But all that information is available to you publicly down in the description. With all that said, everyone, insert end video tagline here.